All right, so this is chapter 30. This is the Conservative America and the Ascent 1980 to 1991. We are going to say goodbye to Carter. We're going to say hello to Reagan. We're going to meet Papa Bush. And we are going to end sort of the Cold War, at least for this era. All right, so let's look at the rise of the Conservative Party. So a lot of this is going to start with a book called The Conscience of a Conservative, written by Barry Goldwater. Remember from the last chapter that he ran for election against Johnson, and he is going to lose. He's also going to write a book about containment later on. But this book becomes kind of the new beginning of the Conservative Party. It's very anti-New Deal. And so it's going to kind of feed the new platform. There's also going to be a grassroots conservative movement. A lot of this is in the 1960s. This is going to include, again, from the last chapter, the Young Americans for Freedom is going to be a big part of this. There's also going to be a Liberty Lobby who's going to work for Goldwater in the 64 election. And then also Phyllis Schlafly. All right, so a big part of the conservative movement is something called the three-legged stool, okay? And the idea is that this is, to truly be a conservative, you need to be anti-communism, you need to believe in religious traditionalism, and you need to be pro-free market economics. So these three things put together make this new conservative platform. So part of that is going to be the religious right. This is going to be conservative Protestants and Catholics who are going to begin representing that religious traditionalism, which is part of the three-legged stool. And this is going to be big because it's going to be like Jerry Falwell, who's going to establish the moral majority, and it's going to have over 400,000 members. So this is going to be a pretty significant voting base and lobby group. All right, so at the end of Carter's presidency, he's going to have a bunch of problems. One of them is going to be a hostage crisis. There's going to be the Iranian Revolution, whereby we're going to have propped up the Iranian Shah. He's going to leave because of his immense dislike by the citizens of Iran. We're going to help him and hide him, at which point then the young Iranian population is offended by America and what we did. And so they are going to go and climb the fences, and they are going to take our embassy hostage along with the people left in there. Carter's also going to deal with the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, leading to the 1980 Summer Olympics boycott. All of this is going to result, along with all of the economic problems that he was encountering with OPEC, inflation, all of those things. His popularity is going to fall to 21%. Okay, Reagan is going to win by 51% of the vote and become our new president. So 1980, Ronald Reagan will be our new president. And it's going to kind of be a huge shift in the Republican Party during this time. So under Reagan, the party is going to remain a mostly affluent white Protestant party. The Republicans are going to seek to balance the budget. They are going to oppose big government. They fear crime, so they love the idea of law and order and harsher punishments for crimes. And they're going to favor a very strong national defense. This is going to be pretty attractive to middle-class suburban populations, especially those that are against crime and social welfare and things like that. The other group of people this is going to be attractive to are the Southern white voters who've been feeling alienated by all of the civil rights pushes from the 1960s. So they're also going to begin joining the Republican Party. So looking back at that moral majority, right, this is the religious right. They were pretty crucial to Reagan winning in 1980. And their platform called for a constitutional ban on abortion. They wanted voluntary prayer in schools, and they wanted a mandatory death penalty for certain crimes. Reagan's also going to grab the blue-collar Catholics in the industrialized areas, who normally, due to union affiliations, voted Democrat. All right, so Reaganomics, also known as supply-side economics, also known as trickle-down economics. The idea is this: investing in enterprise and production will lead to money in the people's pockets. So to bolster investment, right, is to reduce taxes paid by corporations, okay? So thereby, with less taxes, these big corporations can then expand and hire more people. This would lead to an increase in economic expansion and government revenues, of course, because if there's more pocket and money in all of our pockets, then that's good. Except for it didn't really work. So Reagan is going to reduce income tax rates for Americans. He's going to slash the estate taxes, cut corporate taxes. He is going to leave Social Security and Medicare alone, which is a good idea. But what happens is that the big corporations don't expand. They don't start more companies. They do not expand their existing productions. They do not hire more people. Therefore, there's less income coming into the government. So remember that part of the new three-stool Republican platform is military. And so we're going to spend all this money on the military, but we're not totally going to have the money coming in to help us cover it, which is why, if you look at this graph, you can see right here, Reagan wins. He's going to cut corporate taxes and then increase our military spending, which results in a huge increase in our federal deficit. All right. So remember that a bunch of conservatives, what they really like is deregulation, the idea of eliminating all government power in industry. The goal is to usually create more competition. That's not always the result. Prices began under, this process began under Carter. It's going to be expanded under Reagan. Reagan's going to cut budgets to agencies that protect workers. So OSHA and the EPA are going to get funding cuts. And then he kind of begins the practice of presidents who don't like certain departments. You appoint agency directors who are hostile to the mission of that agency. So therefore, then it won't really be enforced and infringe upon what it is that you want to do. He's also going to have the opportunity to remake the Supreme Court. So he's going to get to nominate Scalia, O'Connor, and Kennedy. And he's going to elevate Rehnquist to Chief Justice. Even doing all of this, the court does actually remain pretty moderate despite these appointments, especially O'Connor. She tends to, and Kennedy, side a little bit more moderate, leaning sometimes to the liberal side, but not always. Scalia definitely upholds the conservative side of the court. We're also in the 1980s going to have this huge HIV/AIDS epidemic. So America is really slow to respond to it. This is a deadly pathogen, came from Africa. It did transfer from animal to human, just like the bird flu and different viruses. Immigrants are going to bring it in. America is going to experience a huge death rate here. And it's really not until 1987 that Reagan's administration is going to act on this, mostly because, again, remember, this is the three-stool platform, religious traditionalism. So therefore, because this is seen as a gay disease, he does not want to act on it because it might turn away that population. All right, so in 1984, he's going to run for re-election. He's going to promote his tax policies. We're going to have Representative Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro run against him. They're going to lose. His popular commercial is called "It's Morning in America," and if we were in class, I would show it to you. All right, but this is going to be a return to prosperity. By 1985, the U.S. is importing more than exporting, which means that we are a debtor's nation, right? The idea is that we're not making as much as we're buying from other places. So we are no longer a manufacturing country, and this starts in the 1980s, okay? Wealth is definitely celebrated. I grew up knowing Donald Trump as the guy that had gold toilets and gold-plated penthouses, and watching shows called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. So this success is celebrated, and the wealthy are revered all of a sudden. So we're also going to have the computer revolution. So, right, we're going to have Jobs and Wozniak. They're going to start Apple in 1976. Gates and Allen are going to start Microsoft in 1975. But remember that Americans, we don't like technology. We're usually really scared of it. So we don't totally jump on board with it immediately. All right, if you look at this internet usage, so internet is created and put out there for the public in the 1990s. But if you look, it doesn't really skyrocket really until around the 2000s, is when you can see this huge jump and peak. And it just keeps going to where today everybody uses the internet like you are right now. All right, so let's look at Reagan's Cold War policy. He's going to reject the détente policy that Nixon set up with the Soviets, and he's all about the arms race. So that is expensive. And remember, he did cut taxes, so we have less income, but we're spending more on our defense. One downside, definitely a stain on Reagan's administration, is the Iran-Contra deal. This is where we were selling arms to Iran in an effort to gain assistance in hostage negotiations in Lebanon. Okay, so we had people taken in Lebanon. We were going and using Iran as the mediator. Remember, they don't like us. So we were selling them weapons so that they would talk to Lebanon for us and get our hostages back. There was no congressional approval for this, which is sort of frowned upon because this is a foreign interaction. Okay. And then what was happening is that we overthrew an elected government in Nicaragua because we just didn't like that government. And we were kind of meddling in places that maybe didn't want us, and maybe if the rest of the country and Congress knew we were doing it, wouldn't have been favored. So these are just examples of the Cold War continuing. Okay, it was pretty active, really, over here in Latin America during this time. So the Cold War, we usually think of the USSR versus the US and nuclear weapons and the space race, but there were actual hot wars that happened in these areas during that time period, going against the governments we would prop up versus the communist governments that the Soviet Union would prop up. Then we're going to meet a guy named Gorbachev. He's going to come into the USSR, and he's going to have some reforms. He's going to introduce something called glasnost, which is called openness, perestroika, which is economic restructuring. And his idea is to kind of melt these tensions with the US. They're going to meet with Reagan and negotiate different decrease in arms. There's going to be some revolutions inside of the Eastern Bloc, and the Soviet Union is going to let them kind of declare their independence, at which point by 1989, the wall is going to fall. All right. Not all Soviets are super excited about this, so Gorbachev is going to lose his position, and then Boris Yeltsin is going to take over. And by December 25th, 1991, there's no more Soviet Union. There is Russia again. All right, by the election of 1988, we're going to have the VP George H.W. Bush. So Papa Bush, he's going to run for office and win. He is going to deal a lot with the Middle East. A lot is going on there. We are going to have our first Persian Gulf War against Saddam Hussein in Iraq. He will have invaded Kuwait, which is one of our allies over there. He's going to threaten to invade Saudi Arabia. So we send troops over. We shoo him back to Iraq, and we call it done. All right, guys. So there is chapter 30, a lot of stuff going on there. We're getting into more current times. Update your big ideas. Get this into your notes. And until next time.